You know, I was sitting in a coffee shop this morning just watching people scroll through their phones, and I had this really unsettling thought.
Yeah.
We like to think of ourselves as these rational agents, right? We
Yeah.
gather evidence, we weigh the facts, we look at the data, and then, we come to a logical conclusion.
It's a nice story.
It's a great story. It makes us feel in charge. But what if I told you that your brain and my brain and literally everyone's brain isn't actually built for that? Like, at all.
It is probably the most uncomfortable premise you can start a conversation with.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, if you actually look under the hood of human cognition,
Yeah.
you realize our operating system isn't designed for objective truth-seeking. It's designed for pattern recognition and survival. And those two things, they're often at direct odds with the truth.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. And look, usually when we talk about this stuff, misinformation, conspiracy theories, all of it, we talk about it like it's a problem with other people.
Right. Those people.
Exactly. Look at those crazy people believing the Earth is flat. But the stack of research you've brought today, it's not really pointing at them. It's pointing right back at us.
It is. We're looking at the architecture of belief itself. And to do that, we have to synthesize a lot of different fields. We've got cognitive psychology from Thomas Gilovich,
A legend.
a legend. We have sociopsychology findings from P. Lamberty, and then information science from Sander van der Linden. We're essentially trying to build a grand theory of why we misread reality.
And just to set the stakes here, this isn't just an academic exercise. We live in a world of absolute information overload. If you don't understand how your own filter works, how your brain decides what's true and what isn't, you're just flying blind.
You are. The mission today isn't to mock conspiracy theorists. It's to look at the cognitive and structural machinery that makes all of us susceptible to false logic.
Okay, so let's start with the hardware, the internal wiring. We have to talk about Thomas Gilovich. He's a giant in cognitive psych, and he has this concept that honestly makes me question everything I saw today.
I know the one.
He says, quote, "We can misread the evidence of our everyday experience and be convinced something is true when it isn't."
It sounds so simple, but let's really dig into what he means there. Gilovich is arguing that we tend to think of our eyes and ears as, like, cameras.
We're just recording reality.
You think we're recording,
Yeah.
but we're not. We're reconstructing reality. And the primary tool we use for that reconstruction is what he calls the mother of all biases, confirmation bias.
Okay, but hold on. I feel like confirmation bias is one of those buzzwords that everyone throws around.
It gets overused.
Yeah, usually people just mean, oh, I like watching the news channel that agrees with my politics. But Gilovich is saying it's a structural flaw, right? It's not just a bad habit.
Right. It's so much deeper than just picking a TV channel.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. Gilovich argues that when you're presented with a new piece of information, your brain doesn't act like a neutral judge in a courtroom.
Okay.
It acts like a defense lawyer for your existing beliefs.
A defense lawyer. So I'm not testing the new info. I'm trying to get my current belief off the hook.
Precisely. Gilovich frames it as a difference in the questions we ask. When we see information that supports what we already think, we ask ourselves a very simple question. Can I believe this?
And the answer is usually, yeah, sure, seems plausible.
Exactly. The bar is incredibly low. But if the information contradicts what we believe, the question changes.
Yeah.
We don't ask, can I believe this? We ask, must I believe this?
Must I believe this?
Yes. And that is an impossibly high bar. If you're asking, must I believe this?
Yeah.
You will search for any flaw, any typo, any reason at all to throw the evidence out.
Wow.
You're not looking for illumination, you're just looking for support.
That explains so much. It explains why you can show someone a literal mountain of data and they'll find the one footnote that has a spelling error and say, see, the whole thing is fake.
That is the must I believe this
Yeah.
mechanism in action. And this connects directly to what Scott Lilienfeld's work highlights, which is this tension between intuition and evidence.
Which is tricky because we're constantly taught to trust our intuition. Trust your gut. I mean, I probably hear that 10 times a day.
And for most of human history, that was great advice. If you're walking in the jungle and you hear a rustle in the bushes, your gut says run.
You don't wait for the peer-reviewed data?
You do not wait for the data on whether it's a tiger. You just run. That's survival.
But the modern world isn't a jungle.
No. The modern world is complex systems, global economies, climate science. Lilienfeld points out that intuition is a terrible, terrible tool for understanding these complex theories. Your gut might tell you the Earth looks flat from where you're standing.
Right. Or your personal experience says, hey, it's cold and snowing today, so the planet can't be warming.
Exactly. I eat a burger and I feel fine, so cholesterol is a myth. Intuition relies on immediate personal experience, but science relies on abstract, long-term data that often contradicts that personal feeling.
So we've got a brain that acts like a defense lawyer for our biases and relies on gut feelings that don't scale to complex problems. But we're not just, robots running bad code. There's an emotional driver here too, right?
Oh, a huge emotional driver. Stephen Lewandowski's research is fascinating on this. He argues that the attraction to conspiracy theories, it isn't about the data at all.
Okay.
It's about the psychology. The belief fills a psychological hole, not an informational one.
That's a key distinction. It fills a hole. So if I'm believing in a conspiracy, it's not because I've analyzed the facts better than you. It's because I'm feeling something that you might not be.
Yes, and that feeling leads us directly to the trigger, because we don't just fall into these rabbit holes on a random Tuesday. It's situational. Kia Lamberty's findings in sociopsychology are just crucial here.
Right. She asked the question, when do people turn to these alternative narratives?
And the answer, it's when they feel a loss of control.
Loss of control. So crisis mode.
Pure crisis mode. Think about a pandemic, an economic crash, a sudden political upheaval. These are moments where the world feels random, chaotic, dangerous. And Lamberty explains that the brain hates randomness. It is terrifying to think that bad things just happen for no reason.
So the brain starts scrambling to find a reason, any reason.
It tries to connect loose ends to patterns. It's trying to regain a sense of agency. Because here's the thing. If the world is just random chaos, you can't do anything about it. You're helpless.
But if the world is being controlled by a secret group of bad guys...
And there's a plan.
Right. It might be an evil plan, but it's a plan.
Exactly. And if there's a plan, maybe you can figure it out. Maybe you can stop it. So paradoxically, believing in a vast evil conspiracy gives people a sense of comfort because it implies the world is structured and orderly, not random.
It's an identity protection mechanism. The narrative creates a shield against the chaos. And this brings up a behavioral concept I saw in the notes that I really want to highlight, this eureka trap.
Oh, this is one of the most powerful hooks in the human mind.
Yeah. The idea that people are usually more convinced by ideas they discover themselves.
Yes. Think about the last time you solved a really hard puzzle, or you figured out the twist in a movie before the end. What did that feel like?
It felt great. You get that little dopamine hit. You feel smart.
That is the exact sensation the conspiracy narratives weaponize. They don't just hand you the lie. They leave breadcrumbs. They tell you to do your own research.
They want you to connect the dots yourself.
Because when you connect the dots, it feels like your discovery. And because you discovered it, you are infinitely more resistant to correction.
So if you just tell me a fact, I might doubt you. But if I went down the rabbit hole myself, spent 3 hours on YouTube, and uncovered the truth...
That idea is now part of your identity. You own it.
That is terrifyingly brilliant. It's like gamifying misinformation.
It is. And once that individual hook is set, the bias, the emotional need, the dopamine of discovery, then we have to look at how it spreads. Because this doesn't stay in one person's head.
Right. This is where we shift from the individual to the network. And we have to talk about Sander van der Linden. He's an information scientist, and he uses a very specific metaphor for this.
He does. He doesn't call it bad information. He calls it an epidemiological contagion.
So we are literally treating fake news like a virus.
Literally. And the models back this up. If you look at large-scale cascade analysis, which is just a fancy way of watching how stories travel through social media, the findings are staggering.
Okay, what do they find?
Conspiracy content spreads wider, deeper, and longer than scientific information. Every single time.
I feel like I know the answer, but I have to ask, why? Why does the lie travel faster than the truth? Is it just because it's juicier?
That's part of it, yes.
Yeah.
The research shows that conspiracy content uses much more emotional and negative language. It triggers that fight or flight response we talked about. But it's also about the structure of the story. Van der Linden talks about narrative framework modeling.
Narrative frameworks.
Think about any conspiracy theory. It has actors. It has relational edges. It has a villain, a hero, a secret, a victim. It's basically a movie script.
And the truth?
The truth is usually data. It's abstract. It's bureaucratic.
It's a spreadsheet.
It is a spreadsheet. The truth about why gas prices are up involves global supply chain logistics, futures markets, and refining capacity. It is boring. The conspiracy that a secret cabal is fixing the price to hurt you specifically, that's a narrative machine. The truth is an analytic system, and the narrative machine is just physically more compatible with the human brain.
This explains that echo chamber paradox in the research. I mean, I've run into this so many times. You try to debunk a crazy theory with facts. You bring your spreadsheet to the gunfight.
And it backfires.
It always backfires.
Almost always. The research shows that debunking often reinforces the belief rather than correcting it. Because if you're a part of a narrative tribe, if your identity is built around knowing the secret truth, then an attack from the outside just proves you're right.
It proves they are trying to silence you.
Exactly. It validates your struggle. You're the hero in the movie, and the fact-checker is just a minion of the villain.
So we're up against a distraction economy that rewards spectacle. Spectacle logic beats logic every time.
In the current environment, yes, it has a huge advantage.
Okay, so we've mapped out the how. We have the cognitive glitch, which is confirmation bias. We have the trigger, the loss of control. And we have the viral spread through these narrative machines. But I want to spend the rest of our time on the deep why.
My favorite part.
Because there's a philosophical tension here that I think explains everything. We have this concept of Bayesian explanatory values, which sounds incredibly nerdy.
It is nerdy, but the finding is profound. The research suggests that humans prefer explanations based on psychological appeal rather than validity. We have explanatory vices. We want the answer that feels satisfying, not the one that's most likely to be true.
Let's make this concrete. We have a comparison in the notes between political philosophy and conspiracy narratives. On one side, you have the reality of how the world works. Think Locke, Rousseau, the foundations of modern democracy.
Right. If you actually read Locke or Rousseau, what is the purpose of society? It's resource coordination, it's protecting property, it's building infrastructure.
It is inherently mundane.
It is zoning meetings, it is tax codes, it is bureaucracy.
Oh, it's the DMV?
It is exactly the DMV. And let's be honest, the DMV is not an exciting story. It's slow, it's inefficient, it is frustrating, but that is what governance actually looks like.
Okay, now contrast that with the conspiracy.
The conspiracy offers a secret cabal. And here is the dark secret about why we love the secret cabal. It implies competence.
Competence.
Think about it. If a secret group is running the world, rigging elections, faking moon landings, controlling the weather, they must be incredibly organized.
They're getting things done.
They're effective. And that is weirdly comforting. Because the reality, the Locke and Rousseau reality, is that no one is fully in charge. The world is a messy collision of competing interests and incompetence. That's terrifying. We would rather believe in an evil genius than in a chaotic void.
That is such a heavy realization. We prefer the villain because the villain implies order. And then you layer in the Marxist critique included in the sources.
Yes, the alienation aspect. This is the fuel for the fire.
The quote is, political economy replaces life and humanity with money and wealth.
In a modern capitalist system, people often feel alienated. They feel like cogs in a machine they don't understand. They feel disconnected from the fruits of their labor.
You feel like the system is rigged against you.
Because in many ways it is. It's impersonal. It doesn't care about you. And that feeling of alienation creates a vacuum. If you feel like your life is being stolen by an invisible force and someone comes along and says, it's not invisible, it's that group over there, they're the ones doing it, that's a powerful narrative substitution.
It substitutes a good story for structural reasoning. It's easier to blame a specific villain than to understand global capital flows or automation.
Precisely. Conspiracies are narrative machines, not analytic systems. They take the complex anxiety of modern life, the alienation, the lack of control, the confusing data, and they compress it into a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
And usually the end involves you, the believer, being right, and the bad guys getting caught. It's a fairy tale for adults.
A very dangerous one, because it disconnects us from the actual levers of change. If you're fighting a phantom cabal, you aren't fixing the zoning laws or the tax code, you're fighting ghosts while the real problems get worse.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. Because we've covered a lot of ground. We're not just saying people are dumb. We're building a model of the human condition in the information age.
Right. Let's look at the chain. We start with Gilovich. Our brains are structurally flawed to seek confirmation, not truth.
We act as lawyers for our beliefs, not judges. Then we add Lamberty.
This flaw gets triggered when we feel loss of control. When the world feels random, we invent patterns to feel safe.
Then we add van der Linden. We live in a digital network that acts like a super spreader for these viral narratives because they're structurally more engaging than the boring truth.
And underneath it all, we have this deep philosophical preference for the good story over the valid fact.
We prefer the competent villain over the incompetent bureaucrat.
It's a perfect storm. It's a system almost designed to detach us from reality.
So what's the aha moment here? Is it just despair or are we just doomed?
No, I don't think so. The aha moment is recognition. It's metacognition, thinking about how you think. The takeaway is that we are all susceptible.
It's not about them, it's about me.
It's about you. When you feel that rush of connecting the dots or that surge of certainty based on a gut feeling, that's the moment to pause. That's the moment to realize your internal wiring is trying to take a shortcut.
It's about recognizing that intuition often overrides critical analysis. And while that feels good, it feels like a discovery, it usually leads us right off a cliff.
Exactly. Skepticism shouldn't just be applied to the news. It needs to be applied to our own brains, first and foremost.
We've covered everything from neurons firing in our heads to the viral networks on our phones to the philosophy of the DMV. But as we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with one final thought to chew on, something that really stuck with me from the explanatory vices research.
Go for it.
We've established that the human brain naturally selects for the most appealing story, not the most valid one. We are evolutionarily wired for the drama, not the spreadsheet.
That's what the evidence shows.
So here's the question. In an open marketplace of ideas where algorithms are optimized for engagement and our brains are optimized for story, is objective truth physically capable of competing without some kind of intentional intervention?
Or is the truth always inevitably destined to lose the popularity contest?
That is the question that will define the next century. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.